This episode opens with a sequence mirroring the arrival of Robert Baratheon and his party way back from Season 1, Episode 1. There's a small boy running to see the arrival of Jon and Daenerys, who was much like Arya from that first episode, way back in Season 1. They used the same music from that sequence, which was a nice touch, and the quick cuts in the editing accentuate the anticipation of this event very well. The arrival of the dragons was also well executed. I liked how the score made it seem grandeur and big and epic, but all the people from Winterfell were just scared as shit running around. The first of many reunions in this episode then occurs, and it's evident to Jon pretty early on that his brother is now an emotionless husk.
Look at you. You're a man.
You left Winterfell a king and came back
a bitch. An auntie fucking bitch. Sansa actually brings up a really good point about the logistics of feeding all these people with what is merely in the stalls at Winterfell. I guess this army didn't bring any food with it? Anyway, I hope this issue is brought up more and becomes a continuing factor, and it's not just dropped and never brought up again.
May I ask, how are we meant to feed the greatest army the world has ever seen? While I ensured our stores would last through winter, I didn't account for Dothraki, Unsullied, and 2 full-grown dragons.
I can't understand why Tyrion would think that Cersei would fight for Daenerys. I mean, whenever he talks about it, he doesn't seem completely convinced. But I hope this is him just wishing that she will. I hope he's not part of some big grand plan to defy Daenerys and he's going to join with Cersei again. I get that he's conflicted against fighting against his own family, or he was at least when Daenerys was fighting Cersei. But if he just switched sides, it would seem kind of out of character for me.
No one fears her more than I do, but I promise you'll be safe.
Cersei told you her army was coming north to fight for you.
She did.
And you believed her.
Arya's reunion with both Jon and the Hound was well written in my opinion. They actually took into account character traits, something which they seem to have been dropping the ball on a bit in the last season. She seemed to revert back to that little girl she was when she last seen Jon. She embraced him and she was happy and smiling and kind of innocent again, not just a mindless blank murderer. Even though I think the audience would have liked to see more of an emotional embrace between Arya and the Hound, it does really make sense for both their characters to be cold and standoffish towards each other once they reconvene.
You're a cold little bitch, aren't you?
We also get our first look at the Golden Company, and I think the storyline of Cersei clashing with the remainder of our heroes who are left in the north after their devastating clash with the White Walkers could be a satisfying conclusion to the series.
Horses
2,000.
and elephants.
No elephants, Your Grace.
With the dragons and the White Walkers, the budget just wouldn't allow for elephants as well. While I like the fact that Cersei is once again trying to seek revenge on Tyrion, it seems completely obvious to me that Bronn would not betray either Jaime or Tyrion for wealth. Maybe back in Season 1 when he was just a simple sellsword, but the character has been through so much and changed and evolved so much since that point. I really hope there's more to this story thread because at this point in time it just seems completely obvious as to what will happen. He's not going to betray them. We know his character. He won't just betray them for wealth.
What will she do for the man who rids her of her treasonous brothers?
I wanted those elephants.
We all did. I don't care for Yara, and I think the Greyjoy storyline has been completely mishandled in comparison to what Martin did in the books. I think she should just fuck off and we should get the inevitable redemptive story arc with Theon finally going back to Winterfell and his friends forgiving him.
You want to go to Winterfell? To fight for the Starks?
The use of CGI and live action aerial shots shot in Iceland makes the dragon flying sequence look absolutely amazing. See, George Lucas, that's how you do visual effects. You layer CGI and live action, not just all CGI. Actually, weirdly enough, Lucas was on the set for the filming of this episode. Who would have guessed?
Okay, that was great. No direction for you. I don't really care about you. I don't care what happens to you. What's going on?
It's also obvious to point out, but it seems horribly dangerous so these dragons don't have harnesses. You just kind of grab on to something and they just dip and dive and fly and do all this crazy shit. I mean, I feel back in the Targaryen heyday when all that dragon jazz was going on that they would have had seats or harnesses. I might be wrong, but it just seemed like at any moment Jon could just fall off the dragon and he's dead. Put some fucking seats on the things. They're dangerous, alright. There's this reference to Jon and Ygritte's relationship in this episode, and all it did was remind me of how much amazing chemistry those two actors had. I mean, to the point where they actually got married in real life. And all that does for me is highlight the fact that Kit and Emilia have no chemistry together. I mean, I just can't see them in a relationship at all. It feels so clumsy and awkward and I just don't buy it.
It's cold up here for a southern girl.
So keep your queen warm.
They're setting up some political drama between Jon's loyalists and Daenerys' loyalists. This is obviously going to become far more heated once the truth of Jon's lineage comes out. It makes sense at this point in the narrative still that political drama is a big thing. If the show suddenly flipped and it was like Lord of the Rings, like good versus evil, like all of our heroes versus all of the White Walkers, it wouldn't make sense. That's not what Game of Thrones has been about or will ever be about. It's about human ambiguity.
I will stand behind Jon Snow, he said. The king in the north.
I told you we needed allies.
You didn't tell me you were going to abandon your crown.
I mean, it feels pointless to say, but you kind of have to acknowledge John Bradley's amazing acting in the sequence where it's revealed that his father and brother have been burnt alive. He's trying to stay like solid and he doesn't just want to break down in front of the queen and just emote. He's trying to stay solid, but you can just see all that emotion welling up in his face as he's trying to conceal it. All the subtle nuances in his face and how he used it. It was obviously great acting. This also further pushes the division between Jon's camp and Daenerys' camp, with Sam now very aware that Daenerys has some streak of her father in her, the Mad King who would just burn prisoners alive.
I offered to let him retain his lands and titles if he bent the knee. He refused.
Jon has never sought power. People have always flocked to him, seeing a great leader within him. And it makes sense that he's a bit reluctant to accept his lineage at this point. I think it's inevitable that he'll have an Aragon-esque arc of accepting his true place in the kingdom and becoming the leader he was born to be, unless Game of Thrones just subverts that typical character arc. But I don't want to see him toying with it for too long. It's not annoying yet, but I would really like to see him grasp at his destiny and take on Daenerys and say, yes, I am the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. I accept my place in this world. I accept my lineage, and I accept that I am a great leader and that I want to lead us against the White Walkers.
Bran and I worked it out. I had a high sepsis diary, and Bran had whatever Bran has.
Bran has autism. This scene was my favourite by far. The way the sequence builds tension at first without any use of music is really a great testament to the talent on display here. It reminds me of that scene in Inglourious Bastards where they're all sitting around and there's a mass amount of tension of our heroes being discovered as not true German soldiers. All the tension is just built in the cutting and the dialogue and the acting. The scene doesn't feel the need to throw obvious, hey, you're supposed to feel tension music in the sequence. And it's the same with this sequence. We do eventually get music, but at first we still feel tension and suspense just through the camera angles, the acting, and the cinematography. The reveal of the Umber Child as the Night King's gory message and the ticking clock element now in play, that these people need to get back to Winterfell before the White Walkers to warn them of the imminent attack, was so great. It just spilled the tension perfectly. And that jump scare, it was so perfectly timed. It scared the shit out of me, eh?
If the horses last, we'll get there before the den. We just have to hope the Night King doesn't come first.
Finally, we get the cliffhanger of Jaime arriving in Winterfell and seeing Bran sitting in the same spot he's been sitting for 3 days straight now. Weird child, weird child. Anyway, this harkens back to the catalyst that kicked off all of these events that we've just seen in the last 8 seasons. The moment where Jaime pushed Bran out of the window, that kicked off everything. Without that, half of this shit wouldn't happen. And I look forward to seeing what Bran says. I'm sure he'll be forgiving because, you know, he's all weird and 3-eye raveny now. And he's like, we're cool. It was all destiny. It was all supposed to happen. But anyway, a very interesting dynamic to set up. In conclusion, this episode wasn't amazing, but it did a very good job at setting up all the pieces and getting our characters all in this place for the next episode. So I look forward to seeing the Night King attack soon, now, already. Come on, let's see it. 5 more episodes to go. Let's see this. It's gonna be amazing, I hope, unless they fuck it up, which they could. Alright, thank you for watching, really about it. If you like, subscribe, and in the comments tell me how I got all the facts wrong and how my opinion is null and void. Thank you, and good night.